Recorded.
We should be ready to go.
It's my intent. Can you see me?
No, I can't. I
Yes.
can.
Yep, you're on.
Maureen, are you looking at like your background picture of your cat or something?
Nope.
Nope.
I'm on screen and I'm unmuted.
Huh. Well,
Kelly will have to mute me if I get after my cat. But I did lock him up.
Good. I don't know what else. I don't know what I could do to make your computer show me. But if it becomes an obstacle, we will address it. Are you okay proceeding?
I'm okay, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so today is Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order concerning imposition on strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Meetings in the town of Upton are being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. Kelly, I'm assuming, or can you start recording if you haven't already?
It's being recorded.
Perfect, thank you. So we have a fun and action-packed agenda tonight. We are going to look at some minutes of some administrative work. We've got a presentation on the audit report from Roselli Clark and Associates. We're going to talk about the alcohol license for Rushford and Sons, a modification to the ADA approach, appointing cultural council member. We're going to execute the town meeting warrant, look at ballot questions, accept a gravel donation, look at a request to waive a permitting fee, town manager reports. And that'll be it. So with that, we'll start with, I think it was the March 2nd minutes. They looked okay to me. Steve, Maureen, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at them. If so, I'll take a motion or any feedback or comments.
No, they looked all right to me, Brett.
Yes, the minutes are fine with me as well.
Great. Take a motion.
I would move to accept the minutes of March 2nd, 2021. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Second the motion, Stephen Metellian, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Derek, do you want to, oh, I'm sorry, we missed public comment. Is there anybody here? We're going to go back to public comment. Is there any public comment from folks? I'm not sure how I missed that. That's my opening salve for folks. Okay, great. Thank you. With that, Derek, I'll hand it over to you to introduce the next topic.
Sure. Great. So this evening we have Terenzio Volpicelli. I say that, Terenzio, correctly? He's been our auditor for the past, at least the past 4 years since I've been here in town. There's been a couple occasions that Terenzio has presented in front of the Board of Selectmen, but I think hasn't done it for a couple of years since. Every year, and Terenzio will go into detail on this, we are required by statute to conduct an internal audit of our finances. And so Terenzio is here this evening, and Kenny Costa, our finance director, is also here this evening to present to the Board of Selectmen this past year's internal audit findings. So with that being said, I'll turn the presentation over to Terenzio. Kenny, I'm not sure who's managing the slide deck, but if you need help with that, just please let me know.
I can do that. I can manage the slide deck.
Wonderful. Chairperson Sim, honorable members of the board, town manager Brindisi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Terenzio Volpicelli. I'm a certified public accountant and a partner at the firm of Roselli Clark and Associates out of Woburn, Massachusetts, and actually right down the street in Hopedale. I happen to be in Hopedale as we speak. So a local firm. We were engaged to perform a financial statement audit of the town's financial statements for the year ended June 30th of 2020, for which we issued our report dated January 12th of 2021. We have a small slide deck that was presented to you. Very briefly, we'll do some required communications, discuss some of the current economic trends, some of the summary financial condition of the town. There was a management letter that was issued, and you folks had a finance department reorganization. Ken, would you please flip to the next page? I provided for you folks a required communications letter. I am going to very briefly touch upon a couple of these subject matters. What is a governmental financial statement audit? We perform an audit of the town's financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards, and those standards contained in governmental auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. An audit includes examining on a test basis evidence supporting amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. Our audit involves judgment about the number of transactions we examine and the areas to be tested. We plan and perform an audit to obtain reasonable assurance as to whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements, whether due from error, misappropriation of assets, violations of law, or fraud. It's important to note this is not a forensic audit. I refer you to our engagement letter dated August 19th of 2020. I'll skip the next section again. That's discussed in length in our engagement letter. Some of the significant accounting estimates, as well as the disclosures surrounding your financial statements, which are most sensitive to changes, involve the total pension liability, which is measured at the Worcester Regional Retirement System level, the total OPEB liability, for which you folks have a third-party actuary who annually assesses that, provides a biennial census, biennial full update, and then annually we'll update that actuarial report, as well as the allowances for doubtful accounts, which you do have a handful of allowances. I'm very pleased to report that we had no reportable difficulties or disagreements with management. And like I said, the entire communications letter has been separately provided. I believe it's about 3 pages long, and we'll go into all of these subject matters in far more detail. Kenny, would you please? So, for those of you who grew up with the Brady Bunch, you may have heard the statement, Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. Well, this is COVID, 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 and I'm sure you've heard this time and time again. 2020 was so affected by COVID. In Massachusetts, we had some of the highest unemployment rates in the nation. It hit as high as 17.7% in June. It has come down at the end of the year to 7.4. I do believe we had an uptick in January to about 7.5%. The CARES Act introduced roughly $2.2 trillion of coronavirus stimulus nationwide. And just this last month, there's an additional $350 billion in emergency relief to governments under this ARPA Act. There's been 2 rounds of PPP. That's the Paycheck Protection Program. That is important to the businesses within your community, and actually all those who are employed, because that really has helped out a lot of businesses to stay afloat. And there's been 3 rounds of individual taxpayer stimulus checks, the most recent one going out this past month. If I were giving this presentation 1 year ago, I would have been surprised that we had such a rebound in the stock market in 2020, but there was a complete rebound. And in fact, the S&P, the NASDAQ produced extremely strong results. This is important to you folks because this will impact your the Worcester Regional Retirement System's evaluation of their net assets as of December 31st of 2020, which will affect you folks for your 2021 financial statements. And energy prices are on the rise. Would you go to the next slide, please? On a more micro level, what is affecting you folks more directly? State aid for 2021 was relatively consistent with the prior year, and that was consistent with guidance that was put up by the governor's office and finalized sometime in November. So we did operate the first several months of the year with really unknowns as to what your state funding was going to be. As for fiscal 2022, it is a bit unknown. However, I would suspect that $350 billion of emergency aid to state should help to solidify that. Of course, that's just speculation on my part right now. You folks received roughly $706,000 in CARES entitlements. That needs to be spent by, I believe it's the end of this year. Sometimes I get some of these dates confused. But that was originally scheduled to time out as of December 31st of 2020, and that was extended an additional year. As far as the ARPA funding, MMA put out an estimate a few weeks ago, and it's as much as $2.4 million for the town of Upton. That spending can happen through, I believe, 2024. So there's plenty of time to really evaluate a game plan for that. Of course, it has to be within the precepts of what the feds are calling a permissible expenditure under that ARPA plan. The town implemented a number of cost savings as soon as the COVID declaration took place. Discretionary spending was essentially put to a halt, which was the prudent decision to make. And as of right now, it's unknown as to how health insurance rates will trend for your renewals. You folks may have a better idea at this point. When I was writing this presentation a month ago, it may not have been as well known. But we have seen a significant divergence as to what these rates might look like, particularly in different jurisdictions. Would you go to the next slide, please? The town of Upton enters 2021 with a pretty strong financial position. You're entering 2021 with roughly $2.1 million in free cash, $2.5 million of stabilization funds. You have two stabilization funds, $205,000 is restricted in capital. It's important to note that $260,000 of that was appropriated for the 2021 budget at your annual town meeting. And while this isn't quite spendable money, it is what I consider to be one of your reserves. You have about $685,000 set aside in your OPEB trust. And that's pretty impressive because I remember when your previous town manager had first approached me about discussing OPEB, it started off with a $10,000 funding number. So you folks have really done a good job, you're accumulating funds in this area. The town's debt burden is very manageable. And you folks did a 2021 refunding, which actually reduced your future debt service. Good job on that. Your reserve ratio, which is one of the key metrics in budgetary flexibility and liquidity that folks like S&P look at, is at 22% at June 30th, 2020, and versus 20% in June 30th, 2019. S&P would classify that as, quote, very strong, and really puts you in a different position. Really demonstrates that the town's financial position is strong. And currently, S&P, through that fiscal 21 refunding that was done not that long ago, rated your debt AA+, which is stable, which is their second highest rating that they have on general obligation bonds for a municipality. Would you go to the next slide, please? This is just a graphical depiction of what's been going on a 5-year trend with those reserve ratios that we were talking about. Boy, that's really hard to read on that screen. I'm gonna go to my screen.
Kenny, is there a way you can maximize that or get rid of the slide preview on the right or something? Yeah, maybe one of them.
Yeah, it's under displays. Yeah, I think it's that one. There you go.
Oh, wonderful. That's a little bit easier to see. But as you can see, it's trajecting at exactly where we would all want our own personal savings to look like. The town's financial reserves are moving in that exact same direction over the last 5 years. Would you go to the next slide, please? You folks recently adopted a new financial reserve policy to replace your 2013 policy. Based on those reserves, that reserve policy, here are your June 30th, 2020 balances and your policy ranges. You can see that you're doing quite well. Again, I have a whole lot of clients who would be very envious of this position right now, but you're doing quite well, which is probably why S&P has given you such a high credit rating. And that's important for future capital that you may want to do, because so often capital is financed through general obligation bond issuances. Ken, will you go to the next slide, please? Again, continue with that 5-year trend. This is your total general fund balances on a GAAP basis. Again, I caution you, this is on a GAAP basis. So this would also include your stabilization funds, which for statutory purposes you all include in your trust funds. But you can see that you're on a compound annual growth rate is roughly 15.6% over the last 5 years. Again, once again, if this were our own personal savings accounts, we'd all be pretty happy about a 15.5% annual return. Kenny, would you go to the next slide, please? We also had issued a management letter as part of our audit. This year's management letter was really comprised of informational items. There's a new lease accounting standard which will become effective in a couple of years. We continue to highlight network security, the need to really put network security at the front of your planning process. We're seeing so many instances of ransomware and whatnot. This leads to the next one. Phishing scams within Massachusetts municipalities, the frequency has increased, and frankly, the sophistication has gotten an awful lot better also. It used to be that you were able to spot them a mile away, just the way people were typing. Their grammar has gotten an awful lot better. It's become a lot more difficult to check, to spot. I caution the Treasury Department within your organization to always question and confirm if there's going to be a change in payment methods, whether you pay one vendor normally via check in the mail, and all of a sudden they ask to change to ACH or wire. That should be confirmed directly with the client independently, because that seems to be where the phishing scams are taking place. Fraudsters are posing as valid vendors, and particularly today with reduced work schedules and people wearing a lot of different hats, we may not take the time to do our diligence, but it's very important if anybody's going to make any changes in payment terms. And this also goes for employees. If an employee wants to make a change to their direct deposit, frankly, they should come right down to the town hall and fill that out in person. If that's not already a policy at the town, it should be. I've seen several instances of my clients where people weren't getting paid for several weeks, and someone had sent an email perpetrating to be that employee, and they essentially stole their pay for a couple weeks. We had another informational item on waste, fraud, and abuse. COVID-19 has given us a unique opportunity to evaluate some of the previously thought of expenditures that were necessities that perhaps we put the brakes on, and then determine, you know what, this really isn't a necessity. So it's given us a unique opportunity to really kind of reevaluate. some of our more discretionary spending. And then finally, we talked about the transition in the Treasurer Collector's Office. In the prior year, we had done a very large write-up on the policies, procedures, and operations of the Treasury and Collector's Office. And there was personnel transition. So some of those items we would normally follow up with, we've decided to wait till next year when the new staff is in place. But I am, pleased to say that I believe it's 7 or 8 different management letters that we had put together where we had recommended that the treasurer collector transition from an elected position to appointed. I'm very happy to say that that has actually taken place. Final slide on the prepared presentation. You folks did a finance department reorganization. I happened to be listening to WMRC the day that it was announced that you folks were going to be talking about it via Zoom. I sat in on that call, fly on the wall. But you did reorganize the finance department. There is now kind of a common direction that the captain of the ship is now steering, captain ship now being the finance director. There's been a number of improvements. By doing that, they were probably more easily able to complete that 2021 refunding, which was a sizable savings. I believe roughly $500,000 in future savings. And I understand that there's been some process improvements in tax title, cash management, reconciliation processes. Once again, staff communication has been enhanced and there's now a common direction. And I believe your finance director is now starting to do cross training so that really just to more efficiently manage the department. And with that, that concludes the slide deck. I understand you folks have a very large agenda tonight, but I'm happy to answer any and all questions with respect to the financial statements. I think the most important thing, I probably should have mentioned it, was we opined on the financials and it was a clean opinion. We did not see any deficiencies in internal controls that we would classify as a significant deficiency or a material weakness. And those are usually the most critical items that I need to communicate as part of these exit conference meetings.
Great. This is very much appreciated. Obviously, a lot of work goes into this each and every time you guys do it. So we appreciate all the work, the time and energy that you and your team have put into this, into the report, into the study. Just one observation. Obviously, everything from a fiscal discipline perspective is moving in the right direction. So we've got the reserves, we've got the stabilization account, and we have more than enough free cash based on sort of what some of the target ranges would be. How do we transition from that, sort of growth into a strong financial position and move to a more metered management where, we don't necessarily have to keep increasing because in a lot of areas we've met the target because of the work we've done over the past several years? What does that transition look like from the sort of rapid increase that we've had over the past few years to more of the sort of leveling out, and I don't know if you call it operationalizing or what have you, the targets and the funding for these?
That's a great question, Chairman Sim. I think some of this becomes very natural. You folks have a number of capital projects up ahead of you, things like a community center, DPW needs, and those things will claw at those reserves that you've built up, and that's exactly why you build these things up. So you've come to the point where you're now accumulating, and I do understand that as part of your capital program, your CIP program, that you will be spending off some of those reserves, and that really will affect the free cash aspect of that. The stabilization will probably still continue to slowly accumulate. It's a good practice to have that rainy day fund in case there really is a hiccup in state funding, because again, while 2021, we have visibility in 2021, 2022's budget is not going to be done anytime soon. We would like it to be. So, you know, you want to still continue to have those reserves in the event that there is a negative surprise.
Mm-hmm. Good. Great. Thank you. That's helpful. Any other questions, Steve or Maureen, please?
No, I'd just like to thank Terenzio for the presentation. It was very informative, and that I agree with him on the reserves that the town should have.
Great. Thank you.
Sure, and I'd just like to make a comment or two. It's always good to get good news from a third party. So Terenzio, thank you for the update. Good to see you. Thanks for the hard work, teamwork and all.
A lot easier to deliver good news than bad news, Steve.
That's right. As always. On the report itself, I think, and this may be more towards Kenny than it would be you, Terenzio, but I would say it'd be nice to see year over year which accounts are turning in money, so we kind of have an idea of which departments are running a little more smoothly or efficiently versus other departments. The other thing that sticks out in that slide presentation is the CARES Act money, that $760K. I know how some of it has been spent, but I'm not sure how all of it has been spent. So maybe if you could pull something together for us in the next month or so and let us know, finalizing how that $706,000 was put to good use, throughout the town and what we were able to utilize that money for. And then I guess just to be the contrarian in the crowd, reserves are a nice thing, but they come at a very high tax rate. So I would tend to disagree. I feel that, we have an excess of money set aside. When you look at our free cash position and you look at our stabilization, and again, I brought this up a few meetings ago, we have that capital stabilization that is just kind of sitting out there in cyberspace, and it's not going towards our, again, as you showed at the slide, we are at maybe 9.7 or 9.5%. If you take that 205,000 out, if once you put it in, we're over 10% of our capital our full stabilization requirement. So, it's nice to have that uptick in finances, but it's also very painful for the taxpayer, and that is what I seem to hear the most of. I must represent a little different delegation than my colleagues, but that's typically what I'm hearing is people are really hurting, especially in this economy, trying to pay that tax bill, those excise tax bills, all those other personal property tax bills that are coming from town. So although it's nice to build reserves, it comes at a heavy cost to some residents. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Anything else, Derek? Is there any comments that you want to make? I mean, obviously, this has been the result of a lot of focus over the past several years and a lot of the policies and recommendations that you and Kenny have put together over the past several years. So I don't know if you'd have any comments.
I don't think I have anything further to add other than what's already been said, but I just, like I always try to do, is thank Kenny and Deb Tater. I don't know if she's here today. There she is. For all their hard work. I mean, this presentation really is a product of what they've been doing for the past couple of years, both in the town accountant's office and the treasurer collector's office. So, I appreciate the work that they've done, and I'm sure the residents of this community appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Very good. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Volpicelli. Appreciate the time and work. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks. All right. Next up on the agenda, we have the expanded alcohol license for Rushford and Sons. So this is, are they here, Derek? We can have them talk about it.
Yes, Mr. Goodman is here, and Paul, our town planner, has also been working very closely with the owners of Rushford and Sons Brewery. So they're all here to present their application this evening.
Perfect. We'll take it. Welcome, Mr. Goodman. I assume you're going to want to kick this off.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much. And Also, thank you to Paul. You've been incredibly helpful with getting our business up and running, and hopefully, making sure everything runs as smoothly as can be in the year of our Lord 2021. So thank you, Paul, right off the bat. So what we've applied for tonight is specifically temporary measures per COVID emergency guidelines to expand our liquor license for outdoor seating. So based on our measurements and guidelines that are available, we are putting a portable restroom is ADA accessible outside. We have a temporary bar that will be facing outside, and we can fit safely with distancing guidelines 9 tables that will have no more than 6 seats per table. And should still, per our meeting with the town planning board last week, still meet all of the parking requirements.
Great. Excellent. Well, we're certainly appreciate all you guys have done in getting that business up and running. It's obviously a difficult time for anybody to be trying to start a business, never mind a new business. So, so good.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. I saw a couple of emails going back and forth about this. So can you talk a little bit about sort of the flow and some of the other permitting around? I know there's a food requirement and those types of things. So do you want to talk a little bit about your plan for that? I know we're just looking at the alcohol license tonight, but I think that context might help as well, just to have a vision of the whole scene.
Yeah, of course. So right now, so to give you probably a longer answer than you're looking for, but I'll take the opportunity to talk about it. We've all been working really hard on it, and we're really excited for to be coming up. We've already started scheduling food trucks, as there is a food requirement, and we do not have a licensed kitchen on premises. We are required to have something like a food truck, and I know poor Diane at the health department is going to start getting a lot of applications from food trucks. I know she's already gotten a few. But so far, I plan on making, I was going to make a big announcement online of the food trucks we already have scheduled tomorrow. However, it is my son's 4th birthday tomorrow, so I'm actually taking a day off during the week. I know, heaven forbid, but I'm going to be putting out a big announcement about food trucks on Thursday. I'm really excited about it. All reputable food trucks that are really great and are going through the health department to make sure they have their Upton health certs all in place. And so yeah, we were only, so right now, while there is the food requirement for breweries, we will only be opening Saturday and Sunday because I need to have a food truck there for the entire hours of operation, and we cannot serve anybody beer until they've made a food purchase of food that's been prepared on premises. So until we're allowed to operate outside those requirements, those restrictions, we are only going to be opening Saturday and Sunday. Once we are able to open outside those restrictions, we do plan on opening Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as well. So if you're looking at, I know somebody had the floor plan, the proposed floor plan for the parking lot turned beer garden up there. We do have a larger kind of central artery. We can see we have the hostess station there that is going to be next to the van accessible handicap spot. So we kind of have the larger thoroughfare through there with considerably more than 6 feet between any of the tables. So we per the ADA guidelines for COVID-19, that should satiate everything. All of our tables are going to be recommended ADA height, so they all should be more than ADA accessible. We built our temporary bar, I believe, it's 33, 34 inches, just the maximum recommended the allowable ADA height. So even though nobody's sitting at the bar for any time soon, the bar is built to ADA, and also the porta potty will be ADA accessible. I wanted to get one with the sink because, going to be getting a lot of use, so I wanted kind of the nicer one, but the one with the sink is not ADA accessible, so we're going with the wheelchair accessible porta potty. But how it will work, not pictured on the floor plan there, we will, on the property in the driveway that's going to be kind of, at the top of the way this is oriented on the screen, we are going to have food trucks. That's where the food trucks are going to park. So right now we're still working on our primary flow, but how it'll work is they'll be greeted by when people will call ahead for seating. It's not going to be walk-up seating. We're anticipating being pretty busy. I know as the community has expressed to us that they are very ready to hang out outside in a safe, fun environment where they can have a gosh darn beer and a good time. That's also meeting COVID guidelines and outside. We do anticipate being very busy, so we are going to require call-ahead seating. We are going to seat people based on their call-ahead seating. How it's going to work is you need to be greeted by the hostess. You will be seated. Once you are seated, you will then, while wearing your mask, go order food from the food truck. You need to order food before we can serve you. Once you have your food ordered, you will sit down, and a wait person, probably me, will come over and take your drink order and then bring the drink over from the bar.
Great. Good. And I know that there was a request around some of the parking apparatus, and I know Derek, I think that came from Chief Bradley. Has there been any update or feedback from the chief or the fire department, police department, et cetera?
Yeah, so I talked to Chief DeFranco from the fire department. He does not have any issues or concerns regarding this application. I did speak with Chief Bradley this evening. As you all know, they are in the midst of reaccreditation. Chief Bradley did get this document. I'm going to show it on the screen just so folks are aware. Mr. Goodman had sent this document to Chief Bradley today describing what types of blocks they are proposing they will use instead of Jersey barriers, this type of blocking. Chief Bradley, again, hasn't had a lot of time to put into this. He did say he doesn't anticipate any problems with what's been proposed.
Great. Okay.
I mean, our thought process is, if Chief Bradley says, just get Jersey barriers, I'll get whatever he wants. Those blocks I felt just were more aesthetically pleasing, and the cost difference is not wild. It is a tolerable cost difference from just regular Jersey barriers. So, I mean, let's have it look a little nicer is my thought, but I'll do whatever Chief Bradley says, of course.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's great. Maureen, Steve, questions, comments? Otherwise, we'll move it.
I think they've covered all their bases.
Okay.
Yeah, my questions really were basically around the safety aspect of it. I think the wheel chocks is a good idea. I like the Jersey barriers, the decorative Jersey barriers that you displayed, I think would work just fine. And I think if you can do that, you'll actually take care of two of the requirements. The ABCC is also requiring, they're asking for roping off of the area or fencing off of the area. So I think your side boundaries, you have to make sure that, you know, from my perspective, from what I'm reading, that the ABCC has set forth, they want that entire area roped off so that people can't just walk in, walk out. And I think that, again, the Jersey barriers, I think, will do a nice job across the front of the property. I think it's that side area that you want to just make sure that you can control, you know, from a safety standpoint, and make sure that you fulfill what the ABCC is looking for.
Absolutely. So for the side area there, we do have planters that we are going to have very close together with kind of at least chest height kind of plantings. My wife, who has a much more aesthetically trained eye than I do, is going to make sure those planters look nice. And what I like about the planters is that they are going to block normal movement per ABCC guidelines, but also, heaven forbid, there is an emergency or is a reason to evacuate. I'm not anticipating this, but if there is a reason for rapid evacuation, those are going over pretty quick. Unlike the more hardy concrete barriers.
Right. You're gonna have a tough time moving those, I would think.
I would think so. That's the point. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I think the only thing you've answered most all the questions that I had. Really, the only other thing that I wanted to ask, and I think it's part of the requirement for us to, again, expand the license for you, is you've mentioned the days, if you could let us know what are the hours of operation that you're going to be looking to be open for on those 2 days. You mentioned Saturday, Sunday, so we're going to need to know those hours of operation. And also we're going to need to know what is the, as a board, we've got to make sure that we're comfortable with what you're requesting as maximum seating capacity. Because I think the only downfall I see is you really don't have a lot of parking. So where there's only 6 cars across the front there, it's going to be tricky to get in a full, if you're saying 6 tables or 6 seats per table, 9 tables, that sounds like 54 to me, but I'm not sure that you're going to be able to actually accommodate 54. So what are your thoughts
We're not.
on that?
Okay, thank you. So first of all, we have 48 chairs, so I wouldn't be able to accommodate 54 if I wanted to. We have actually just last week we did have the same discussion with the planning board and with the for my very layman's understanding of the Upton downtown business district zoning, they have the authority, which they have granted, still waiting on the final write-up, to waive up to 75% of parking requirements based on shared parking, which they have done on record last week. So they were happy with the parking requirements.
Okay. So again, getting back to the actual seating requirement, what are you proposing to the board?
I would suggest a maximum occupancy of 45, not 54.
Okay. Maximum.
Which I believe, oh gosh, shame on me, I don't have the application. I think that's what I put on the application, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. I didn't see it on there.
Okay, you know what? I might have put that on another draft of the application. I apologize.
Yep. Nope, that's fine.
And then the hours you wanted, Steve, right?
I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yes. So hours which are already approved on our existing liquor license, we would be proposing 11 to 8 on Saturday and 11 to 5 on Sunday.
Okay. So that would be your normal Sunday hours, and you would just be proposing a little bit less hours for Saturday operation.
Yes, as much as I'd love, and again, at some point we might go till 10 o'clock on Saturday, but especially too, where I have to keep a food truck there. I'm gonna have a hard time selling a food truck to be there till 10 o'clock. And to be perfectly honest, I'm still gonna be learning all of our systems, and I'm an old man. I don't want to stay up that late.
Come on, you've got Wednesdays off. You can't be that old, right?
Well, I have Wednesday off. Very excited. We're going to start running we finally got our new larger equipment months later than we were planning on, but it should be up and running next week. So Wednesdays and Thursdays are going to be packaging day. It's going to take a lot longer to get to package 7 times the beer that we would normally be packaging. So still going to be pretty busy on Wednesdays, even though we're not going to be open for outdoor seating.
No, that's great. Good for you guys. That's really, really good to hear. Heard a lot of great feedback and great reviews, and I've seen some of the merchandise around town, people wearing their local Upton business shirts from Rushford and Sons, so it's always nice to see that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions for Mr. Goodman?
No, I was just going to say, I think we've covered just about everything. I think really for me, the big thing is we've got to make sure that we protect the public. We've got at least 3 opportunities or accidents, I should say, in town where vehicles have hit buildings. So where those are pulling right up to where the seated area is, I think we've got to be very, very diligent and make sure that there is suitable protection there for the patrons. So that's really my, my linchpin to this whole licensing. But other than that, it looks good to me.
All right, great. I will take a motion.
I would move that we extend, expand the alcohol licensed premise application from Rushford and Sons Brewery on Grove Street, and Maureen Dwinell, aye.
I will amend the motion to include the hours. The hours of operation would be 11 to 8 p.m. on Saturday and 11 a.m. till 5 p.m. on Sunday. I would second that motion. Stephen Metellian, aye.
Maureen Donnell, aye.
I just have a question on the motion, right? I don't want to change the original liquor license, right? Because those hours I think are different than what we approved for the original liquor license. So I don't know if we should change the hours for the updated license, because is that going to negate the original liquor license hours that were approved? It's more of a technical question, I guess. I don't know who can answer that.
Sandy,
I think my opinion.
We can add on the additional remarks or conditions on the Form 43 that you'll be signing, that this is temporary under Order 35 by the governor. And so that would not affect the regular license.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
I can put that under comments.
Yeah, that would be great. I just want to make sure we're not unintentionally limiting what we had previously granted to the applicant. So that's great. Okay, perfect. So with that, I will support the motion, vote yay, and that'll be unanimous action.
Very good.
All right.
Yeah, 'cause I think
Thank you so much, everyone.
You can still be open all those
Just to make
hours. It's just for the outdoor service, we're limiting the outdoor service to those particular hours. And again, we could amend that later on if.
okay. Well,
Great.
okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify. I had suggested those hours because of the current food truck requirement. I would like to be open additional hours once that food truck requirement is lifted. I mean, if you tell me I got to come back and talk to you guys again, I mean, more shame on you. You have to give me a forum to talk at you, but I guess with full attention. But I mean, I would ask that, I think, Brett, you mentioned not affecting the hours, and because I can't open for outdoor seating without the food truck, so that's really going to be the limiting factor rather than anything else.
Yep, go ahead, Sandy.
To expand the licensed premise, once Order 35 is listed, as I had discussed with Brian, we'll need to amend his license. And so I think what we're doing right now is we're going to proceed going back down both roads at the same time. This is a temporary license under Order 35. Brian will also be applying to amend his regular license, which would not necessarily require food.
Okay, perfect. And that'll be done, that's done separately from expanding under this Order 35. Okay.
Correct.
Good. So that
However,
makes sense.
just Sandy, my understanding. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sandy, my understanding. Oh,
Mr. Goodman.
I'm sorry. I keep talking over. It's hard with these meetings to, yeah.
Okay.
Sandy, the way I understand it is, at some point in phase 4 of the current reopening, Governor Baker will allow the opening of bars. And once the opening of bars is open, even though we'll still be under COVID Rule 35, the food truck requirements will be lifted. So that was just my thinking of at that point. Yes, we had talked about that, and believe me, I will be getting that second application to you shortly. But just while 35, the expanded phase 4 of 35, the way I understand it, the food truck restriction will be lifted before Rule 35 is lifted, which is why I was hoping that. I mean, obviously, until that restriction is lifted, I can only be open when I have a food truck, so I'm scheduling food trucks in those hours. But I would like to be open additional days and hours once those, which I've already discussed with the planning board also, once those food requirements are lifted.
We can talk about those when the time comes. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. The current license is extended to offer what's needed, and any changes going forward, Sandy will work with you to make sure that we allow you the flexibility you need and want without any impediment being set by us.
Excellent. Thank you guys all so much for your help. It is greatly appreciated as always. And yeah, thank you for just being really accessible.
Great. Love it. Next up, we have an amendment to the town of Upton's ADA plan. So Derek, do you want to introduce this, please?
Yes, so Mr. Carnegie is here this evening. He is the chairman for the town's Disability Commission, and he's here to outline the status of the ADA transition plan, which again was funded by the Board of Selectmen, I think the early part of last fall. They've been doing a lot of work. In addition to that, there's an additional request for funding so that they can round out the final phase of the ADA transition plan. I'll turn the details over to Mr. Carnegie.
Great, thanks.
Okay. As many of you know, the Disability Commission has been very excited to have this transition plan creation underway. And as part of the initial contract, we needed to identify we needed to identify outdoor sites that would need to be assessed by our consultant in order to comply with the American with Disabilities Act. And, you know, the original outdoor sites that needed some assessment were Town Common, Leland Field site, the FW Playground, West River Field site, Peppercorn Hill Road site, Kiwanis Beach, and the Town Playground at Melford Street. So this would normally be with 7 sites, not an extremely lengthy assessment process. We were grateful that the Land Stewardship Committee, in the midst of conducting some of these self-evaluations, was able to identify, in fact, an additional 12 sites that we were unaware of that were not part of the original contract. The 12 sites are listed on the attachment to the agenda. I don't know if you've seen all of those, but there are 12 sites there, and I'll just give you a sampling of them. Stephen's Farm, Warren Brook Watershed Conservation Area, Pleasant Woods off Orange Street, Snow Family Conservation Area, 12 of them all together, which now has added probably a good 20 to 30 hours more work for the consultant to do a proper site assessment and allow us to continue to move toward closure on getting the transition plan finished. But in order to do that, we need some additional funding. So let me just describe to you what that funding situation looks like. I do have your approval of $30,000 to do the, I'm getting a message that says turn off webcams. Well, should I do that? I don't want to lose you.
Nope, we can still hear you. We just can't see you.
But you got the mic, right?
Yeah,
Derek?
we're good.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the camera off. So at any rate, originally you had awarded us up to $30,000 to conduct the self-evaluation and the transition plan. The contract that we effected with the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission was for $28,875, or $1,125 less than the $30,000 that you approved for us. The request for additional funds came to an amount of $2,400, and that would be to assess the new 12 new sites. And with that additional $2,400, the contract cost now would be $31,275. So the bottom line here is the shortfall of $1,275 for the purpose of completing the field site assessments. And that's what we are respectfully requesting your approval of today.
Okay, thank you very much. How was Derek, the original $30,000 of funding came from what source?
It came from the Knowlton Trust Fund. It's the trust fund that can be used by the Board of Selectmen for any municipal purpose.
Okay. And what's the current balance in that fund? I mean,
Approximately $40,000.
okay. The only reason I ask is I'm assuming that with this shortfall would be covered through the same funding mechanism. So I wanted to make sure there was sufficient funds there to cover it, because I know some of those are getting pretty low. So, okay, that makes sense to me. Thank you, Mr. Carnegie. Steve, Maureen, questions for Mr. Carnegie?
I just have one question on the Forest Heights property, and where we're looking at a different scenario with the flagging of the areas that will go to conservation and what would be developed. I wanted to know.
Which property was this, Maureen?
Forest Heights property on North Street. 100.
Forest,
Yep.
Forest Heights?
Yep.
I don't have that on my list. Oh my gosh, I got to add another one.
Well, it's on it now.
It is
It's the second. It's the second one down after Stefan property.
I don't know why I'm not seeing. Oh, Forest Heights, I see. Yeah, and that's
the Howarth Conservation Land.
it's yes, and that's where again I wasn't differentiating those two things. Let me take a look. Many of these properties. Let me take a look at my notes in terms of that particular property. Many of these properties did not have accessibility, and many of them have not been improved. I don't know if that's the nature of your question, or am I not?
No, there is accessibility to the Forest Heights property.
Okay. Just so you know, Bob, we had a teleconference with the consultants about the property, and we were fortunate to have Marcella with us to take us through these different properties. My notes about the Forest Heights property, not extensive here, but it was not wheelchair accessible. It was near the state forest. There's a long trail there. That's all I can tell you, because again, we didn't get into the detail because they've not assessed it yet.
The chairperson, can I add something, please? This is Chris Scott. We just started through conservation talking about Forest Heights, so it's probably not on anyone's radar yet. So it hasn't been evaluated by the Disability Commission because it really just became active within the last 2 months.
Thank you. Yeah. So, you know, my take on it, Maureen, is right. Like it's there. Whatever we may decide to do with it, secondary to the town meeting warrant article. You know, it's one of, it looks like 12 other things that have been added. So the incremental cost of looking at that property in the context of looking at all these other properties, you know, I'm not sure we know enough to change the plan for that. Is that what your question is, or I just want to make sure we're answering your question or addressing it?
Well, I know they have a plan, or they have delineated wetlands on that property, but if there was good acreage there that we could give conservation the property, which is what the article, I believe, is stating.
Yeah.
And then develop, if we only develop 10 or 12 houses, but there would be a certain amount of acreage that would go to conservation.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think from what Mr. Carnegie said, this could be a piece of land. I believe there's a piece of land that ties into the state forest that is at the end of Forest Street. So where this says Forest Heights property, I don't know, this may be a key. It may be a key piece of property that actually ties into the forest. So I'm not sure exactly what that piece is. I know, Maureen, you're referring up to the North Street properties, but the Forest Heights property, because the state forest comes in from the backside, just like where Dean Pond Estates is being built. So this could be a different piece of property than what you're thinking.
Well, there is state forest land up in that area.
Through the chairperson, this is Chris Scott from Conservation.
Yeah,
The Forest Heights property is above the Warren Brook area, and that's not adjacent to the state forest. But the other side of the road, where there's Whitney property and the conservation area there, that does connect to the state forest, but that's not adjacent to the Forest Heights. So Forest Heights, if anything, would connect to Warren Brook.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, what the chairman said is pretty accurate. We're basically looking at $2,300, and we're looking probably at a description here of, 15 or 20 different properties. So I think the cost is negligible. So I think we should just kind of move this along. I don't have a problem with it. The ask is $1,275. Again, it's an amendment to I think the total amendment to this contract was $2,300. So again, I think it's well within the scope of what we're trying to achieve. So I'm good with it if you want to motion it, Maureen.
That'd be great.
Why don't you motion it, Steve?
All right. Will do. I make a motion that we expend out of the Rustine, is that Rustine B, Derek?
Yeah, I think so.
You
muted, Derek.
That is the William Knowlton Trust Fund.
Okay. I make a motion that we expend out of the William Knowlton Trust Fund the amount of $1,275 for an amendment to the contract to the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission for the purposes of including these properties that we previously discussed. Stephen Metellian, aye.
Second, Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Thank you very much. Next up, we have thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We have an applicant to the Cultural Council. Ms. Gentili is here. We received your application. Thank you very much for expressing an interest to come and help out the Cultural Council. It's always a great thing to have volunteers. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Alice Gentili. I've been in Upton for a long time, and I'm a recently retired art educator in the Mendon Upton Regional School District. I'm currently working for Massachusetts College of Art as a program supervisor for pre-service teachers. I was contacted by Lynn Haggerty about joining the Upton Cultural Council, and I'm excited to do that.
Awesome. That's great. I know they do a lot of fun work, and I know several of the folks on there very well. So it's a great group of people that you'll be working with. Any questions, Steve or Maureen, for Ms. Gentili?
I think Ms. Gentili would be a great asset for the Cultural Council.
Yes, I would echo those sentiments. No questions, but welcome aboard, and it's very nice of you to step forward and offer your time and services to the town.
Thank you. I'll take a motion.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Alice Gentili to the Upton Cultural Council. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
I second the motion. Stephen Metellian, aye.
Go ahead, Sandra.
I'm sorry, was that for a 3-year term? 3-year term?
I would like to amend the motion to include that is a 3-year term that she will be serving under. Stephen Metellian, aye.
I can read that Maureen Dwinell said aye. You're on mute. Brett Simus,
I did. I said aye.
Unanimous action. Thank you. Thank you again, Ms. Gentili. Congratulations, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
As well.
All right, now the fun stuff. We got the warrants, execution of the annual town meeting warrant. So I think we've gone through this several times. I believe the only open item, correct me if I'm wrong, is the override article that I think we were waiting for some information on. Otherwise, I think there are no real changes here. Derek, is that right?
So you're right. The override article is Article 2A. It's listed on the screen. There was an additional article that was submitted by the Community Preservation Committee on behalf of the Historic Commission. That's Article 12F. We replaced Article 18, which was the trees article, and replaced it with the North Street article to transfer the parcel at North Street from the Treasurer Collector's Office to the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen. So those are the three changes that are this evening to discuss. And then there were, just for your information, there were two more citizens petitions that were filed, which are now numbered Articles 28 and 29.
Perfect. Okay, do you want to walk us through each of those quickly?
So Article 2A is right in front of you. As you all know, the Mendon Upton Regional School District has assessed the town of Upton approximately $1.4 million of a budget increase from FY21 to FY22. The number here is not $1.4 million for the override. It's $1,042,000 in change, and that is because we had already budgeted $376,000 during the original budget, and then there were monies found through the BVT assessment, approximately $60,000 there. So that was it. So we were able to reduce the override requests because of those two appropriations. Any questions? I'll keep moving.
Any questions?
None yet. No.
Great.
I'm going to move on to Article 12F. Article 12F is for $2,000 through using CPC dollars to fund the purchase of a granite bench in honor of Barbara Burke and the work that she did to bring Heritage Park under the care and custody of the town of Upton. The only change that will probably take place prior to signing, I spoke to Rena Richard today regarding which account this should be placed under. We originally thought open space. She believes it should be appropriated from the Historic Commission Reserve account. So that would be the only change that you would see on the fully executed version. Any questions? I'll keep moving. Article 18 is the article we discussed at our last meeting. This is basically, like we talked earlier, to transfer these three parcels of land from the Treasurer Collector's Office to the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen. You will see here there was a request by Bill Taylor that asked the Board of Selectmen to consider language that would require the board to put a portion of this land under conservation. So you'll see on line 4 of the article, it does state for the purpose of conservation, but it also states for general municipal purposes and purposes of conveyance. Again, talking to town council, there is no way that the article can require the Board of Selectmen to have this be for conservation. Once it becomes under the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen, it's ultimately the board's final decision on its disposition of land. So this was put in there just to kind of explicitly state that it could be used for the purposes of conservation.
Like a good way to handle it. So great.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time, and I think Christine Scott brought up a good point, which is I don't think we'd want to, if we do choose to put this property, I guess I'd just like to make a personal opinion. If we were to choose to put this property out to bid, I don't think at that point that we could sever land off of it and go ahead and put the property out to bid. I think we'd have to put it in the bid process would be the best way to do it. Convey the whole property to a potential developer and let the engineers figure out what could be used as open space.
I would disagree with that, Steve, only because, I mean, we already have a report which is flagged wetlands there, correct, Derek?
Mike Penko does have a report from the original Forest Heights developer that has wetlands delineation already in. I haven't seen it. He says he does possess it though.
And we should, if I may, we should hold this conversation until the article passes and we actually have to dispose of the land. This is just to approve getting the article on the warrant. And I totally agree. There's a much bigger discussion we need to have around how exactly to do that.
I agree with that.
Agree.
Yeah, okay, this gives us the flexibility, which is what we're after. So, okay. Thank you.
So those are the three changes for our business purposes. But again, just for your situational awareness, I'll just bring to your attention Articles 28 and 29. One speaks of limiting term limits for elected officials, and the second one speaks to requiring the Board of Selectmen and moderator to limit those individuals from reappointments if you served, I think, more than 3 consecutive terms. Other than that, those are the changes for this warrant.
Okay. I am good with those changes and with what was here. But go ahead, Derek. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was afraid you guys would take a vote. I just want to go back up to the top page because right now the meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 6th. And so before you took a vote on this warrant, I wanted to make sure that the board still wanted it that Thursday. Many neighboring communities have already started to move their meetings to a Saturday to be held outdoors. As you all know, we have a debt exclusion and an override all in the same warrant. So I think it's reasonable to think that we're going to have a very large turnout and may cause some concerns given that we're still in the pandemic. And I honestly don't see that changing over the next 6 weeks. So it's something to consider only because we'd have to change the date of this header for the warrant if you were to consider that.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people have been asking to have the meeting even before COVID on the weekend. It seems like it would give more people the opportunity to participate, which I suppose is always a good thing. I'm sure for some people it would be harder for various reasons, but generally I think it would be better for participation. So I'm certainly open to that. It's definitely going to be a large turnout. There's no doubt about that. So
I'm also open to that.
Okay. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got given the situation with COVID, it seems like numbers are ticking up, ticking down. I would assume that town meeting is unaffected by any of the opening or social gathering guidelines by the state. But I think you're right. I think we should expect to see a big crowd. And if that's the case, I guess the question is, can we execute the warrant and modify the date later, or do we have to make that decision tonight? I think that's the big question. But before we do that, I did want to ask Derek real quick about the snow and ice article and the Canadian geese article. So if we could just make sure we circle back before we execute anything, I just wanted to get a little update on that. But getting back to your question, Brett, yeah, I mean, I'm all ears. If we have a feeling that we're going to end up with 300 or 400 people that are wanting to participate, by all means, I want to make sure that we extend whatever gratitude, whatever concessions we need to make them comfortable and able to attend.
Yeah. If we could, what's the Saturday after that? I guess that's a Thursday. Would that be the 8th, Derek?
Yes, that would be.
And it would be, we would be able to do it outside. You had with no tent, and on the field with the rain date. Is that what you guys were talking about?
Yeah, so Kelly's already she's already communicated with the school, and she's been able to secure the football field for May 8th, Saturday, May 8th. And then also as a rain date, we would recommend Saturday, May 15th, the following week as a rain date. And again, Kelly's already secured that date as well.
Okay. I saw your facial expression, Maureen, and I sort of had the same reaction when I heard no tent. But if we can have a rain date, maybe that covers us. Of course, there's the real cynic in me that's like, what if we have 2 rainy days? But I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking of too.
Yeah. So, there's part of me that thinks, or we should at least discuss the value of having a tent or not having a tent and what the implications are. I know it's an expense, but it's probably easier to put up a tent than it is to, pack up and put down 400 chairs. But I'm not sure. But certainly, it's a bummer to have to move the date of a town meeting. I think that really puts a cramp in people's style when they've got to deal with that. So,
do you have a figure, Derek, of what the expense was last year?
$20,000.
20?
Just for the tent.
That was the tent. That was the tent and the audio visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audio visual was like 7. The tent alone was like $13,000.
And we can get CARES. Can we use CARES Act for that again? I would think.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we wouldn't have to pay for that. Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to reiterate that the town of Hopkinton was trying to do outside, and I've seen some emails that it's very difficult to get a tent right now. I think a lot of restaurants are using tents, graduation parties. So for us, I just want to caution you that we can look, and we will look and look hard for one, but I just want to caution you, Hopkinton responded that they couldn't find a tent for their town meeting.
So what if we do if we plan on the 8th and the 15th, because we'll have the other thing about the 6th on the Thursday is I bet it would be easier to get a tent on a Thursday night than a Saturday afternoon. So that's something to think about.
Yeah.
So we should think about that. So I'm sort of open to all options. I don't know, Steve, what are your thoughts on the tent versus, because I think we can either do, let's try to find a tent for Thursday because it's probably easier to find a tent for Thursday night than on a Saturday. Or do we just say, you know what, let's plan on Saturday, rain date Saturday. If we can get a tent, great. If we can't, that's fine. We have a rain date. Which of those sounds better?
Well, I think the other limiting factor that we've got to consider is the size of the tent. And we had ample size, last November, but then again, for the reasons that you described, if we're in a catch-22. If you anticipate 300 people or even if 250 people, the tent, I think we're kind of, we may be up the creek. We may not be able to. And then what do? Do you ask people to sit outside this tent? I'm not sure. I guess we have to talk it through and see what makes sense. I hate to always be Mr. Naysayer. But.
No, Steve, that's the best. Oh. That's the best point, Steve. Right? Because that was a huge tent, and it was the perfect size for 140 people. If we have 300 people and we're going to have half of the people out in the rain anyway, then we're not helping anybody. At least we can all be in the same boat together if we don't have a tent.
Right. Right. Okay. And now you say, is it possible to rent 2 tents? But, I'm not sure. I don't, I don't know if that's feasible.
I don't know. So I'm based on that, Steve. I'm sort of inclined to think that the sort of plan on the Saturday with the rain date of the Saturday and look into getting a tent, and if we can get one or two, great. If we can't, then that's fine. I mean, it's not the expense, right? Because the CARES Act will cover the cost. So I'm not worried about the cost. It's just the overhead of dealing with it. But I think it would help to have the tent if we can get it, but still plan on just the Saturday or Saturday.
Yeah, and as Kelly mentioned, the decision may be made already if the tent isn't available for either date. So it may be a tough decision, or maybe the decision may already be made for us.
Yep.
Does it depend on the size, Derek, of the tent? I mean, if a lot of them, I don't know what size Hopkins was looking for, but if we needed a tent for 300 people,
I think we'd have to rent two. That tent we rented last time, I think, was Creedon & Company's largest tent. So we'd have to Steve's point, we'd have to get at least two of those tents to accommodate 300 people. And those are $13,000 tents. So we'd be at $26,000, plus we'd probably have to double the monitors. So you're probably at least another $12,000 there. So $40,000 for a town meeting.
do we have that money in the CARES Act?
We should have, yeah, we have $40,000 still remaining.
But
I'd still like to see if we could get it on a Saturday on the 8th.
What if we plan on the 8th with the 15th as a rain date, and we agree that we're going to try to get two tents if we can get them. If we can only get one, let's have that discussion. But I think we can decide that separately. Obviously, Derek and Sandy, right? Or Kelly, you get the point, right? Like, obviously, if we can get tents, we'd like to have tents. If we're going to get a tent, we should be able to accommodate 300 people. If we can't, then let's have a conversation, or let you guys decide whether it's better to have half of us in the rain and half of us not.
We'll keep you posted on information again.
Okay.
I notice everybody looking at me. Does that mean I'm in the rain? Is that
No, Steve, we would put you in the rain.
That would look pretty funny. I'm me on the outside of the tent. I know that's what you were thinking, Maureen.
No, I was not.
Would that be too symbolic, Steve? Oh my God, how embarrassing!
Your cat's looking over your shoulder, nodding.
No, I locked him up tonight. I'm not dealing with him.
Now
so do we want a motion to the 8th and a rain date with the 15th?
We do, after we address Steve's questions about snow and ice and the geese problem.
Yeah, I think if we're going to execute, we really should just make sure we clean those articles up if we can. I just hate to go to print with 200,000 showing on that line item if we know it's going to be 25 or 30.
Has Derek got any information from Dennis on what the snow and ice is?
Well, I appreciate the warning of asking that question, because while you're debating tents, I was texting Dennis. He did tell me that Bill is working on that this week to finalize the numbers, but he said we're in the range of a deficit of approximately $50,000. But he doesn't want to be held to that exact number, but he thinks it's somewhere in there because they just ordered, like they do every spring, because they can get a better price, filling up the salt and sand shed. So they just topped that off. So he said they were at 35,000 plus probably another 10, 15 there. So he's thinking somewhere in the $50,000 range.
Okay. Yeah, I think last time he was thinking we were at 25 to 30. So I don't know if there's been any sanding events since then, but
we had that one sanding event since then.
Yeah.
And but then they filled up the salt shed now that the season's over.
Okay. Derek, you had an update on you said last meeting that the Canadian geese article was going to be reduced. Do we have a solid number on that as of yet?
Yeah. So again, kudos to Andrew for chasing this down. And so we are going to be looking for an article for approximately $7,000. So we'll reduce it by thereabouts $3,000.
About $3,000. Okay. Good. And just one other thing I just wanted to bring up real quick. since it just ties in nicely with the Roselli report from earlier, I'm kind of a numbers guy, so I thought it'd be nice to see the cable, Article 6, cable peg access. We have that 77,200, almost set up as a, almost like a revolving fund. And it'd be nice to see how those monies are being expended. I know there's a rough breakdown there, but internally, I think it'd be nice to see how that money gets expended. And as I mentioned earlier, maybe we can get Kenny to give us a little better breakdown on, where the audit was just recently done. What accounts are turning money back in, what accounts are running efficiently, or departments are running efficiently. So just something I wanted to throw out and mention.
I think that
You said, yeah, you had another one too, Steve. The CARES Act.
Exactly.
Yeah, CARES Act money, it'd just be nice to know, like again, we're talking about it tonight as far as what monies we may be able to expend out of there. It'd just be nice to know what the tally's looking like and how we have been able to utilize it up to now.
And I think so let's definitely add those two in agenda, Derek, so we can talk about it, both of those items, because I think that'll be great. And if there's, in addition to the CARES Act, I know there's some, there's other funds, was it for the schools, and there were some other reimbursements that we were getting. So any money that we've gotten that's been supplemental because of COVID or any stimulus or anything like that, like let's take an inventory, to Steve's point, of like, what's all the money that we have available to us? What if it had, from what's the source? What of it have we claimed or used, and for what? And then whatever the gap is, like what, do we have a sense of what we're going to use that money for? I know you guys are doing all this, but it'd be great for Steve and Maureen and I to see it and to have it just public.
Sure. So we can certainly report, and Kelly and Kenny have done an unbelievable job with tracking CARES Act money. And then Chief DeFranzo has been also a part of the team with the FEMA reimbursement. So we can certainly present that in short order, I would imagine, in cable account as well. So those are the CARES Act and FEMA reimbursement are the only two that we've really expended from as it relates to responding to the pandemic and our needs. You mentioned two other sources of funding, so I'll just briefly talk about them. There's the Esser Funding, so that is direct money to the schools. I had sent the Board of Selectmen an email this evening. The school district is getting an Esser 3 funding allocation. So they had Esser 1 and Esser 2. Now Esser 3 is supposed to get this month. And I'm thinking, based upon what was sent out today, it's approximately $480,000, if I'm reading that spreadsheet correctly. So the schools would have a breakdown of how they expended Esser 1 and Esser 2, and then ultimately they should be able to give us an idea how they're going to spend Esser 3. The last one is ARP, American Rescue Plan. The town of Upton will receive approximately $2.4 million from the federal government through that allocation. There is no guidance at this time as to the use of those dollars. It's one-time money, so it's not like we can hire 2 firefighters with it, because the money's going to drop off after 18 months. But there are rumors out there that there's an expectation that this money is put towards infrastructure, so like water and sewer, and then also to support businesses and trying to get them back on their feet to where they were pre-COVID. So those are some of the rumors out there, but the Treasury Department is working on the allowable use of those dollars. So there's more to come on that grant program and what we're able to do with it. I can tell you, though, through the CARES Act, we had $706,000, as Terenzio pointed out. It's been very challenging to spend $700,000 because of the constraints they put on the use of those dollars. So the last position we want to get in is acquiring something that is not allowed, and then when we get audited, we have to then go to town meeting and ask for an appropriation because we misappropriated funds. So we're very careful. Kelly, Kenny, and our consultant, Tom Zadella, is very careful, probably maybe more conservative than most towns, in how we spend those dollars. So we have a decent amount of money remaining from the CARES Act dollars.
Good. Well, good. Better to be conservative than get ourselves into a hole. So that's good. Okay. Anything else on the warrant before we execute? Oh, so that answers, Steve, were those your two questions, the geese and the snow and ice? Anything else?
Yes. No, that should be it.
Okay. Okay. So I think we've agreed that we'll do the 8th and the 15th for the dates, and then
Wait a
as
minute.
other than updating snow and ice and the goose article. With that, I'll take a motion.
So I would move to close the annual town meeting warrant and to change the dates from May 6th to May 8th and 15th with the changes that we talked about tonight. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
I second the motion. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Great work to everybody involved with putting this warrant together. Just awesome and a tremendous amount of work by so many people. So as always, expressing gratitude for all that time and effort. Derek, I know it's a lot of the department. I mean, everybody, right? This is the Super Bowl of municipal government in New England. So great work.
I'd like to also say great job to everyone and to thank them very much for being so specific and clarifying all the articles. Thank you.
I would say good job by most, but I would not say good job by all. This is ultimately 2 years in a row with override questions, so I will not say absolutely not. You're not going to get that out of me. Not good job by all.
Next up, we have the gravel donation acceptance. So I see there's several pages of document in here. Is there a total amount that we can approve, or are these duplicative?
Yes.
Or?
Yes. So the total amount is $2,750 worth of gravel that was donated by Earthworks.
Okay. Great. All right. Any questions about this?
Got any idea what it was used for? I saw the invoices, I ran through them, but I didn't see what the actual usage was for.
So I would say probably about half of it was used to backfill the hole that was created from the 50 yards of excavation over at the Zero Grove Street property. And then the DPW took the remaining material over to the DPW yard. Dennis said that they had use for it. He didn't explain what the use was, but he said that they could use it.
Okay, very good.
I'll take a motion.
All right. I make a motion that we accept the donation from Earthworks for the gravel, and the value of that was $2,750. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Second, Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Next up, we have a application or a request to have a $25 fee waived. This is from Jay Beyer, the Director of Finance and Operations for the school district. So
Jay emailed me today. He said he's not going to be able to attend, but the school was looking for the Board of Selectmen to waive the $25 fee permit fee.
They couldn't carve this out of the 1.4 million, huh?
Can I go first?
Please, Steve.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I'm a no.
I will second that no.
I think it's ridiculous. I think BVT comes forward, BVT pays their fees, whether they're regular license or whatever. I think it's a ridiculous request. Again, 2 override years in a row. I listened to the meeting Monday night. They touched upon the budget, 1.1 million in raises, 7 new FTEs. I don't want to keep going, but I'm a no on this one.
I you could probably tell by my introduction, I couldn't agree more. This is an extraordinary request, and frankly, shocking. And I can't understand the intent or the message or the request or the time that was taken to write this letter and to follow up on this for $25 is really astounding. So I'm a no on this.
And I agree with you. What is the purpose of these tents?
As Jay explained it to me, this is the tent that they erect in the parking lot when the weather gets better so that they can have outdoor classes.
I thought everything was supposed to be indoors when they started opening up.
And keep in mind, this isn't for the tent. This is just the $25 permit fee.
I know, and how much are the tents? And how come they got tents and we can't?
They must be paying out of that money.
$13,000.
Paying premium.
And it's $13,000 for one event. So what if you keep that tent up now for the next?
Yeah. How long are they going to keep this tent up? Or tents? Because they're going to put it at the MISCO, right? And the high school.
That's correct.
So it's not just a one-day event.
I think we should discuss changing our fee structure. Those $25 fees should accrue weekly.
Oh, God.
We can send them a bill for our time. How's that?
Yeah. I mean, if they've got that kind of money and that's in this year's budget, correct?
Yes.
It's in this year's budget.
So
if we're paying $13,000 and we're only using it for one night, what are they paying for it to hold classes till the end of the year? That's what I'd like to know.
Good question. Those are very good questions.
Not answering those
I'm
questions.
a no.
Okay. Sounds like we're not going to get a motion on this one. So we will. Do we need a motion on this to handle it, or do we just?
You want to make a motion to not waive the fee, the permit fee?
I will make that motion that we will not waive the permit fee for the tents at the Misco School and the Nipmuc Regional High School. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
I second the motion. Stephen Mattelli and I.
This is Brett Simus, Jay. Unanimous action. Aye.
We did miss one item, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
We skipped over one agenda item.
There was no
item.
There was no link. That's why I go through my tabs with the links. We got to make it a link next time. All right. Yes, the ballot questions.
There's no link because we were at the 11th hour trying to pull these two questions together.
Nice.
So Kelly and I worked with KP today. Kelly drafted some language for KP to review, and so we have two questions to go to the ballot. One would be for the debt exclusion, so that would be question one, and then question two would be for the override. Kelly, does anything you wanted to add to this request?
Nope, it just needs to be voted, and it's all the language has been approved by town council and bond council. So with the motion should include that the language that has been drafted, and that allows me to place the two questions on the ballot that will go to print next week.
All right.
Now, we don't actually see the ballot questions. We don't have them on the agenda link. That's what you were referring to.
Yeah, can we see them? I would assume we want. If we're going to vote on them, or is that what we're supposed to do?
I can pull them up. If you could bear with me.
Yeah, no problem. I don't have Jay Byers' cell number. I was going to text him.
Gonna have a group call because I think Maureen's ready to tear into them. So
Oh,
So this is the question reviewed and approved by bond counsel. This is the community center. This is the debt exclusion question.
what part of this? The whole thing? I'm just because I see the Brienne. So which part of this? Can you highlight the part that's the actual question?
right there.
Thank you.
Now, I would assume when that goes to the ballot, it would actually have the dollar figure in there because it seems a little ambiguous.
No, Steve, there is no dollar figure in there. Debt exclusions do not include a dollar figure because you don't know what the total amount of the bond is going to be. The appropriation that we vote at town meeting shows what the amount is appropriated, but because the bonds, and Kenny can add to this if he please do, because the bonds have interest, you don't know what those interest amounts are. So there is no dollar amount that shows up on the debt exclusion questions.
Okay.
And that's a legal practice, or
Yes.
okay?
Because keep in mind at town meeting, the vote for the community center is the appropriation of the amount to borrow. The appropriation is to borrow the funds for the cost of it. What the question does is allow us to pay that money back over the 2.5%.
Totally. I mean, I get it on a technical level, right? From a common sense level, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to ask people to vote on some sort of question that they have no idea what they're voting for.
On election day, I will know the amount of the appropriation, and I will be letting voters know.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
and
That's why
the
I asked
reason-
the question. It just seems like it's very ambiguous the way it's written. I understand that because again, we have the ability to pay down some of the monies should it pass.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but the appropriation, say the appropriation is $11 million and it came in at $10,100,000, then you're locked into a debt exclusion that says 11 million. I mean, it's based on, what is actually bid for the project. And we don't have that until we vote the article.
Yeah. No, I think technically we all agree. But Steve, I think we're saying the same thing, which is let's just make sure we do everything we can so that on the day that people go to the ballot, they know what they're voting on. I think that's only reasonable.
No, they won't be able to because we haven't gone out to bid to find out what the bid price is.
I don't mean the exact number. I mean the number that we've talked about at town meeting, because there's going to be a lot of people that show up to the ballot to vote that weren't at town meeting and will not know what this question is about in terms of the amount of money. And so if this doesn't pass at the ballot, then essentially that money is not going to be spent, right? So it fails and is not spent. So people that are going to the ballot box won't know what this is if they've not been to town meeting. That's all. And I want them to know. I think they should know. That's my opinion.
Okay, I agree.
Yes, I agree as well.
Okay. Otherwise, fantastic. What's the next one? I'm pulling this up right there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to scroll through everything I have open. Okay, this should be it. Okay, so this is the Prop 2.5 override question drafted by KP Jared Collins.
All right, I've never been a part of drafting these questions, and I totally respect the lawyers. This really doesn't have the amount in it either. Maybe. Is that standard practice, or? And I know I'm not at all questioning anybody here that's doing this at all. This is like a legal question. I'm just shocked that as
Derek, that's the debt exclusion question. You want to go to my email that I sent you.
Debt exclusion?
That was what he just showed was the town council approval, but we want to go with the bond council. Now he's looking up the correct one. That will have the dollar amount. I promise it has the dollar amount in it.
No, I know it's not your decision what the lawyers say. Like I totally get it. So it's okay. It's just.
Do you have it, Derek? Because I have it right here.
If you have it, Kelly, if you could pull it up, I'm going through everything here.
Okay.
Again, this was literally working on this all day today to have this ready for tonight.
So this debt exclusion right here it's this right here.
Okay, perfect. I mean, it's far from perfect. The question is okay, and having the amount in there is critical.
So it looks like both of those are the two ballot questions right there. It just, again, it seems like the first one is very, very ambiguous. But I agree with what Brett said. That just happens to be the way the attorneys draft it. And I understand the reasoning for it. Whereas the bottom one actually spells out the exact amount that was, we will vote on at the annual town meeting.
Right.
So that, that looks fine with me.
Okay.
The debt exclusion on here is very similar to what bond council approved. They just put the address in.
Okay. Any other questions on the questions?
On that one that just showed up, it actually says Library and Council of Aging. If you look at that last one, Kelly, if you bring that back up, the wording is a little bit different. Design new Upton Community Center to house the library and senior center.
I wouldn't recommend we go with that. That was my first draft of it, and I'm not an attorney, and bond council recommended the one that Derek approved. And if we're going to go out to bond, we want to use what bond council approved. Because we don't want to run into...
You have to use what bond council's approved. Because when you go out to borrow, that's the first thing they're going to ask for. They're going to ask for the article, and they're going to ask for the question. And if it's written incorrectly, then you have to start over because they won't accept it.
And they don't want to show in the question what the building actually is. Unusual.
Is there, and I don't want to belabor this too much. I think we've sort of made the point, but like, is there, I know at town meeting, we put out informational packets. Is there like, you probably can't do that at a.
No, in order for the town to do, I think you're thinking about what the state does, where they give you the yes and no on a state question that will, on a ballot question that appears on the state.
Something like that explains what these things are.
Yeah, there is a state statute that allows towns to put those out. Upton has never accepted that state statute because what I get from my colleagues is sometimes it's difficult to find someone that to write that legalese. It gets expensive, so we can't do it because we haven't accepted the language, and a lot of towns don't accept that language because they realize it becomes very costly to put that out every time you have a question on the ballot.
Okay.
It's definitely something the town could look into a little bit more on whether or not we wanted to accept that statute, so that could go out, but
And also, I too, we can put information on the website, right, about the ballot questions, right? So
yeah.
we can say, hey, here's what this, question 1, this is the detail. Question 2, this is the detail. Obviously, everything about the community center building committee is on there. So maybe that's what we have to sort of rest on, is the fact that all of the information will be out there very publicly, well in advance of going to the voting booth. And because the 2.5 override is so clear, hopefully it's clear that question 1 is the library community center for whatever the number is, and question 2 is the override. So, okay, I'm struggling with that, but I think I feel better about it. But it seems wild to me. Okay. Any other? Oh, sorry, Kenny. Go ahead. I saw your hand.
No, I know it's hard to see a question without a dollar amount on there. I know it's hard, but everything that has been said is correct. And like you said, Brett, I think just putting the information out there for everybody to know about the project, the dollar amount. However, when it comes time for the loan, we don't know what the interest rate is. We're hoping for a really low interest rate, but it could be higher. So we just don't know what the dollar amount's going to be. We can't tie into that because when we prepare the tax recap, so DOR, they will ask for the question and they will ask for all the backup, and we can't put a dollar amount on the question, but there will be a dollar amount on the loan authorization. So not the attorneys, there's also DOR that's also looking at this too. So we have to dot our I's and cross our T's to make sure that everybody's happy with this.
All right, fine. We won't just pin it on the attorneys. We'll also pin it on DOR. Good
Everybody.
The attorneys say thank you, Kenny.
Right.
So often vilified. Okay, that's great. I will take a motion on the questions if there are no more questions about the questions.
I move that we accept the articles for the debt exclusion for the community center and the override question for the schools. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Second the motion, Stephen Mattelli, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Next up, we have town manager report and updates.
Hey, so I got a few updates I'll go through. I think Paul is still on. So as you all know, Paul's been doing a lot of work on pursuing various grants. And a few weeks back, we talked about the town was awarded the Rapid Recovery Planning Grant. And so just to keep everybody abreast of what's going on with that, the state has hired a company out of New York City who's going to send a team here this Friday. They're going to be here for 3 hours from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. to do a site visit. They're going to meet with some key stakeholders here in the community after their site visit to get a better sense of what are some of the needs for the businesses here in town. Paul has reported in the past that once we go through this planning process, we expect this to set us up for future project grants to bring in what we expect as substantial dollars in the future. So again, that's starting this Friday, and we'll keep you posted, especially when the key stakeholder interviews come to pass. Moving to the town clerk's office, this is more of a PSA than anything. The last day to submit your dog license application is tomorrow. So those folks that are listening, hopefully they will submit on time. They've already processed over 600 applications to date. So that's, I think, the most in the last couple of years. So again, a lot of work's happening over there. Yesterday, I met with Chief DeFranzo and Patrick Roach and Captain Lazaz over at the railroad. Once again, we did another walkthrough of the facility to try to get a better sense of their continued expansion. They have the silos that are up. The inside of the building is near completion. They've already received approval to make their water connections. We had officials from DEP were with us during the walkthrough from the Air Quality Control Division. Apparently there's some things that the state needs to sign off on they are representing the EPA under a federal mandate and are the compliance officers when it comes to air quality over at the railroad. So it's good to know that DEP, although they're not working on their own behalf, they're working on the federal government's behalf over at the railroad. So just a couple of things when I walked with Mike Milanowski, he did suggest maybe in June, if the board was interested, he'd love to give a tour to the Board of Selectmen on their operation, so you can see firsthand what they're hoping to do. We don't think it's going to be operationalized until early August, but we think it'll be ready for training potentially by June, which again is when they're inviting us to come in yet again. But again, there's still a lot of work that has to get done, but I just want not only the board but the community to know that we are working with their team and well aware of everything we're doing over there. Moving on to the police department. Chief Bradley is in the midst of reaccreditation. The accreditation team is in town. They're going to be with us for the next 2 or 3 days, going through the various policies and protocols to ensure that we continue to meet, those very high standards. So again, the police department is extremely busy this week. As far as the Board of Health is concerned, you may have seen the note last week, the end of last week. We have 22 active cases now in the community. We are now categorized as a yellow community. We've gone up from a green community. Nationwide, the number of new cases has increased 12% over the last week, and in some states, like Michigan, over 50%. So it's something that we're paying close attention to because, we certainly, like I mentioned earlier, are not out of this pandemic. And the CDC director, in fact, reported 2 days ago that she's extremely worried about the exponential increase over the last couple of weeks. So that being said, though, clinics continue to still take place on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This coming Saturday, I believe, will be the last Saturday specifically held for teachers. After that, the regional clinic, which is, again, 4 days in Uxbridge, 1 day in Upton, will be opened up to the general population. So those other residents here in town will be able to get vaccinated locally once that becomes a regional site for an entire state. The fire department continues to work with the Board of Health and the public health nurses. Right now, they are assisting with homebound populations. So the Board of Health is trying to track those individuals who can't get out and get vaccinated and going directly to those individuals' homes to vaccinate them. So again, strong work between health and fire.
I would assume, sorry to interrupt you. I assume they're working with Janice on that too, with the Council on Aging.
Absolutely, yeah. Janice has done a lot of work early on with the Board of Health. In fact, they held a clinic at the senior center to make sure that the folks in that age group were vaccinated early on. And then Janice continues to take phone calls from individuals who just can't leave their home to ensure that they do get vaccinated. So yeah, that's a great question. And Janice will talk about that today.
Okay, and I assume that or if we have not, can we touch base with like some of the local civic leaders, whether it's the, Pastor Lori or others in the community, to just see if we can identify anybody that may not otherwise have access. I know they're doing those kinds of things at like the state level, but I just feel like if there's something we can do locally, then let's try to identify folks that might not otherwise be self-identifying. Just a thought. I don't know.
Nope, I'm making notes while you're talking. So yeah, I'll follow up with the end-to-end group and neighbor to neighbor group, because that was a good way. That was a very good coordinated effort, and just put this on their radar. If they're talking to folks, whether it be through their food pantries or other places, just to spread the word. So yeah, that's a great idea, and I'll definitely follow up on that. As far as code reported 106 permits to date, and that's 25% more of an increase than they were at the same time last year. So it's now the end of March. That's 25% higher than where we were in March of last year. They have been told by Pulte. Pulte is expecting to issue 1 occupancy permit per week starting this spring. So they plan on going into heavy construction mode and plan to sell those units very rapidly over the summer months. As far as the library goes, they are going to hold an outdoor book sale on Saturday, May 1st. So they're going to use not only the property where the library rests, but they're also going to use the 6 Main Street property as well as part of the outdoor book sale. They're working with the Board of Health to ensure that, they're following all COVID protocols and have all the proper social distancing in place. So they also, I mentioned in the past, once they have their book sale, they'll get a better sense of how many books are still remaining, so they can remove the container, which is now located at Zero Grove Street. So hopefully by the end of April, early May, both of those containers will be gone. They also want to.
Sorry to interrupt you again. I would like to just commend the community on the decision to take care of and purchase 6 Main Street, having that a nice grassy area where we can expand the library footprint and have an event over there is just a remarkable shift for the community from having a dilapidated, condemned building with a giant red X on it. So I just want to recognize that as a great move. So that's good.
Yeah, totally agree. And then they did. Matt did report today that all their programs, although they are allowing by appointment only folks to come in and do some browsing, limited browsing, all their programs, their children's programs, are all going to remain virtual through the summer months. So they don't expect to see those programs come back anytime in the near future. And then last, I'll just report that the building committee has closed their comment period. That closed last week, March 26th. And they probably received, I would say, upwards of 30 comments were made through that 30-day comment period, which I thought was a really great idea. We've held, I think, 3 comment periods in the past 12 months, and this one by far was the most utilized. So what I'm learning from that is that there's a heavy interest in the community regarding this potential capital improvement project. So pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Great. I noticed Chief Bradley hopped on the line. I didn't know if there was anything any updates or anything regarding the accreditation process or anything that you wanted to share.
Hi, good evening. No, I'll just add that day 1 went very well, so we're looking forward to getting through the process. And there's been a lot of work done by the team up at the Police and Communications departments. So we expect everything to go just fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome. Okay, anything else, Steve or Maureen?
Just a quick question or comment regarding a tour that you said that Mr. Malinowski was able to or was offering to put on it. Was that a particular day that he already had earmarked, or was that something he was just extending to the board?
He was just mentioning that if he wanted me to mention to the board that he would be more than willing to offer a tour to the board at a period of, at a date in June, because he believes in June they will be able to start training this new facility. So at that point, you can see firsthand all their operations. So there's no specific date in mind. He just wanted to see if there was any interest by the board to attend such a tour.
I would definitely be interested. It's always nice to, educate myself and be able to answer questions instead of passing the buck. It's nice to be able to answer questions that the community may have. So I would be interested. I don't know, Maureen or Brett, is that anything that you'd be interested in?
I would be interested.
And frankly, I know this sort of takes it to another level, but at some point, if not for our tour, offering some sort of a public tour, I don't know if you limit it to 10 people. I mean, it sounds wild because I know it's a very controversial type of business, right? But even I think of having my 14-year-old or my kids walk through there just to see the scale of an operation like that is impressive and a learning experience from a learning perspective. I know there's also people in the community that would be reassured to go in and see the level and quality of all the work that's been done, of all the security protocols, all the fire protection equipment, and like seeing that firsthand may help alleviate some of the misperceptions out there, and maybe not, or it might validate some of them. But anyway, just something to think about. But either way, I think it's great to engage the community and certainly the board in learning more about the facility and the business over there. It's a great offer, and we should all take advantage of it.
So I will coordinate with Michael Milanowski and get back to the board when he feels it's appropriate to be able to have that such tour.
And Derek, could you just repeat those numbers from the Esser money that the school received? You said there was 2 rounds and there's a 3rd one coming?
Yeah, so they received Esser 1, I believe that was last summer, and then they received Esser 2, I think, in the fall. Esser 3 was just announced. They're expecting to receive this money, from what I understand, in the month of April. So within the next few weeks. From what I have read, it's approximately $480,000. I had asked a question when we had that joint meeting back in February to Jay Beyer if he could explain the uses of the Esser 1 and Esser 2 funds, and he did talk a little bit about what they use that for. It's most of it, the way he described it, as I remember it, was for COVID, for various protective measures for their students and their faculty. I don't know what their plans are, and I did ask the question. I did ask Jay Beyer today what their plans were for Esser 3, and he just responded that he would get back to me.
Good. Any other questions?
Hey, Brett.
Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
There was some questions a few minutes back about the wording of the articles for the overrides and the debt exclusion, and the wordings on the ballot question for both of them as well. I have mentioned several times in the past, and Mr. Finance Director has mentioned at the same time in the past, if you go to the Division of Local Services website and type in this thing called Primer Proposition 2.5. It's been around since, it hasn't changed very much, and it's been around since the inception of Proposition 2.5, and it answers all the questions that you can probably think of, and it has sample verbiage for ballot questions and town meeting warrants. So, like I say, it's been around. And I'm not directing this to you, but this is your first go around at it. And it answers a lot of the questions. And, if the public would be smart enough to look at some of these places, that'd answer a lot of their questions as well. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you very much, sir. Always appreciate the wisdom. Thank you. Anything else? All right. If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I would move that we adjourn this meeting of March 30th. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Second the motion, Stephen Metellian, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Thanks, folks. Have a great night.
Everybody have a good night.
Are you on?